All right, there we are. Okay, and we're live. I want to welcome everybody to the first ever live stream and clinic at Providence Sound and Vision. We're here in our Gear Gallery showroom in Los Angeles, California, with Gary Thielman from Harrison Audio. And welcome. Thanks for coming, Gary.
My pleasure, yeah.
Gary's been with Harrison
42 years.
42 years. So is that the beginning?
Time. Not the beginning.
Not the beginning.
Close.
Just
80,
about.
80% of it. An area to make the Harrison consoles. So that worked out pretty nice.
Nice, nice. Well, thank you for joining us today. We have some people here in the audience, and we have somebody moderating the chat. So if you have any questions, if you're watching on Instagram or YouTube, go ahead and type your questions into the chat. They will text me, and then I could read your questions here. And then I just ask anybody in the showroom here if you have any questions, either put them in
Room. And subsequently, many years later, Bruce had his own studio in Ocala. Also had that same console in his personal studio as well. So yeah, there was a period of time. Harrison started in 1975. That first console went in Nashville, actually. 3 studios in Nashville bought the first 3 consoles. And over the next 8 years, there's 200 or 300 consoles that went into studios around the world, and about 50 of them came here to Los Angeles. So United, Western, Warner Brothers, they were everywhere here in the late 70s and the early 80s. So all those records that were done in that period of time, Christopher Cross and the Doobie Brothers and Hart and just on and on and on. You've got the Spotify list. It's really amazing the amount of work that was done out here on using those consoles. And you know, it's kind of like the golden era. It was the kind of the tail end of really high performance analog recording before it started to transition into the mid 80s. And that's where Harrison started. We took a little bit of a detour, not a little bit of a detour, a big detour in the late 80s, and we got heavily into the film industry. And a lot of people don't know that. We kind of went away from the music side of things And we really focused on the film industry out here, and I sold many, many consoles out here all over town. Spent 20 or 25 years working with all the film lots out here. We had a technology that they really needed. It was digitally controlled analog stuff, and they needed that. They needed big consoles. They needed to be able to reset them instantly, automation.
You were decades ahead of that.
We were
Yeah.
really pioneering that kind of technology, and they bought into it, and the whole company kind of shifted in that direction. Of course, fast forward, and everything went in the box. Wasn't my box, it wasn't Harrison's box. And we had to figure out what to do. So we started making plugins. We started doing what all companies do. We started to widen out the IP a little bit, taking the DSP stuff we were doing and making plugins and trying to spread everything out a little bit. And I decided in 2019 that we needed to get back into the music side of things. And we had a really nice legacy of analog console designs. And I owned all that stuff. We owned all that stuff, and we just went back and said, you know what, we're going to make a new analog console. We thought there was space for that and set off on that. And this is the result of that. Of course, that was 2019. I started this project in May of 2019. Of course, 2020, the whole world changed, and it really slowed that development down. That turned out to be a little bit of a godsend because we couldn't get parts. I couldn't prototype anything. It was a very difficult time to make something like this, to develop something like this. So it kind of all slowed down. By the time I had it prototyped in maybe late 2021, me and my partners were getting a little bit older. We were kind of looking around for figuring out a succession plan. And I hooked up with a guy named James Gordon from Audiotonics, who runs that company. He had recently bought Solid State Logic and Digico and Allen. He has a bunch of companies under that umbrella. And we had some pretty cool technology. They were interested in it, and I ended up selling Harrison to that group. And we became sister companies with Solid State Logic in 2023. So that's been going on for about 3 years now. This console already had been designed and prototyped before that happened. So it was good timing. I had this sitting in my office when those guys came to meet everybody, and they said, "Wow, what's that?" And I said, "Well, that's my secret weapon." That's what I hadn't told them we were doing. And they said, you bring that kind of stuff, you bring that kind of IP. We have 50 years of making really high performance audio products. You bring that to the table, and they can handle everything else. So they take care of distribution and manufacturing. Now the consoles are made in Oxford, which is great. Whether they're building an SSL console or a Harrison console, these are veterans of building high performance, large format consoles. So that worked out really well. And we've come out with other products too. We have 500 series modules, we have a 500 series rack, we have channel strips, we have the console, and one of the cool things about the products that we make now, and this is kind of a legacy thing from the film industry, we got into the networking, audio networking stuff very early on with Audinate on the big film consoles we made. So we had this Dante development already done, and A to D and D to A converters, we designed those years ago. We had all this technology. So when we were making these new analog products, I decided that we're just going to roll all that in with this design and kind of do a hybrid, make it easy to get in and out of what is essentially just a straight up analog console. And it turns out that the mating of those two things is pretty cool. Makes the interfacing really easy on the console. I was telling Jeff earlier today, we were doing some testing last week in Nashville regarding latency and things, and everything is checking out really, really well for large network audio systems. So it's pretty interesting. So there's kind of a fast forward through the history of Harrison. This console specifically, digging back into the filing cabinets full of circuit designs and schematics that we have, and I still have them in my office. We decided to go all the way back to the beginning. We could have chose from any number of equalizer designs, preamp designs. We done many things over the years. But we decided to go all the way back to the beginning. David Harrison did it at the beginning. He spent an inordinate amount of time. This EQ, has stood the test of time. It was designed 50 years ago. And through probably the first 3 or 4 years, meticulously designed to work with as many kinds of sources as possible. And that's kind of was the whole design philosophy that David had. Back in that day, you put a console in a room and that was pretty much all you had. You might have had a little bit of outboard gear, 2 or 3 plates for reverb, and a nice mic collection, but the signal processing really was handled mostly with the console. And so his philosophy was, if you're going to do that, then you need to be able to satisfy any kind of source that's coming in, whether it's a vocal or an acoustic guitar or electric instruments or woodwinds or whatever it is. So that's what he did. He just meticulously designed that equalizer so that when you use it on just about anything, it works, and it works really well. It's not a great surgical EQ. That's a little different thing. It's a very musical thing. If you need to get in and get rid of some crazy noise or something, there's plenty of tools to that.
Well, now you can do that with a plug-in.
Yeah, you can do that with a plug-in.
Get it handled on the track in the box, and then come out and add musicality.
Exactly. There's plenty of ways to deal with that. But overall, consistency from one channel to the next, so that everything is coalesced together. And when Bruce was making Thriller, you brought that up, and he would tell you that. He told me that many times, that's why it worked, because everything was consistent. It was the room, it was the performance, and it was having a lot of the same things that were very useful no matter what you were doing with them. And that's part of the reason why those records sound so good. I mean, it's really kind of simple. They didn't have all the tools that they have today, but they relied a lot more on a holistic approach to the studio, the performance, and then the engineering people who were driving the sessions.
Have you seen the Michael biopic yet?
I have.
Didn't they mention Harrison?
I think so. If they did, I went right by.
I think there was a scene where they were outfitting the studio, and they're like, "We need the Harrison console," and then it was like a '90s Allen and Heath that was like the prop people put together.
I heard about, yeah.
But Allen and Heath is Audiotonics too, right?
Also, sister company of ours. So we like the Allen and Heath guys, and of course they're a powerhouse in the small live console space. So it's quite different than this kind of design.
So you mentioned that era, late 70s, early 80s. Harrison was in most of the major rooms in Los Angeles.
Yeah, also probably a dozen or so rooms in New York, in London, and really all over the world. And
so a lot of the kind of yacht rock, right? Christopher Cross, Sailing was on that. Supertramp.
Yeah, all those great records. Steely Dan.
Asia. And then Talking Heads. I think the Talking Heads stuff was done in New York, right?
Yeah, that was done in New York, and so was quite a lot of the Steely Dan stuff, and later Donald Fagen stuff, and Roger recorded a lot of that stuff at the I think it was Soundworks. I can't remember the name of the studio in New York City. It was that little studio in New York City. But I got a great picture of Roger sitting at the console working on the Nightfly back in 1980 or 81, whenever that was. So yeah, they really were everywhere. But now I got to give it up to SSL because, as the 80s rolled in, they really took over the music side of things. They had Total Recall. It was really a groundbreaking thing, and the music studios just jumped on it. And they did that before we ever did any digitally controlled analog stuff, and everybody was trying to find their place. They found their place in the music side of things. We shifted our whole company to focus on the post-production side of things. And off we went, and then 30 years later, we come back together again. It's really nice working with these guys, but a little bit surreal for me because all those years was kind of a weird thing. But right now it's working pretty good. So
if you can't beat them, join them, right?
If you can't beat them, join them. And we never could beat them in the music side of things. Still can't. So we're trying. We're trying hard. But we're kind of reinventing this brand. I mean, we did it 50 years ago, and I decided we're going to try and do it again. And here we are. And we got a great product. We have really good products, and now we just need to let everybody know, what we're doing.
So you mentioned when the 32C was being designed and coming back to market, you reached back to some of the original designs. How much of the original designs are in the 32C?
The EQ and those filters. The filters in particular, probably the hidden gem on this console are the high pass and low pass filters. Really, really nice. Those guys back then will tell you that. That's the magic. The magic knobs on the console. The EQs are great. It's kind of hard to beat that design. It's a proportional Q design, so you don't have a lot of specific control of the Q on any particular band, but we do it for you. And that's what David did. He made that work really, really well. There's a lot of magic in there, and when you turn those knobs, you can hear it, and you realize some meticulous thought went into that design. So I didn't change it. Let's bring it forward, and let's do it. And the beauty of doing that is fast forward 50 years, and the chips and the technology and how we learned to lay out PC boards and grounding and all the things that go into a professional audio equipment are 50 years newer. And so you take a really good design, there's nothing wrong with the design at all, but you put it into a hardware situation that is just orders of magnitude better than it was back in the day, and you get something pretty incredible out of it. So that's kind of what we did. But the circuits themselves, I have the hand-drawn schematics. That's what we use to.
And Jensen transformers on the inputs. Is it line in and mic pre?
Just on the preamp.
On the preamp. Okay.
And it's not a gain transformer. It's just a coupling transformer.
Okay.
So it just puts a little iron on the front end, and then a discrete preamp behind that. So we could make the console without them. But why would you do that? They do add a really nice little, whatever it does on the top end. It just puts a little iron on the front end, which is really nice. But there's an interesting story about that. The original console had transformers in it, and we very quickly engineered them out. They were not very good back in the 70s. They were inconsistent. You could, if you had to put 32 of them in a console, they varied widely from one to the next. It was hard to match those things up. They just weren't very good. So, one of the first redesign things of the early consoles was to get the transformers out of them. And we really paid attention to electronically balanced inputs and outputs on the console designs. And we used that for decades. We never put another transformer in a console after those first consoles until this console. And when I was, we were designing this, I said, well, if we're going to go all the way back, David wanted to put transformers on those consoles. They just weren't very good. So I got a hold of the Jensen guys, and they said, you got to send us, like 50 transformers so that we can make sure that they are really closely matched. And they are. Again, fast forward 50 years, and that technology has gotten really good. And once we realized that these are very consistent, and I can put 32 or 48 or however many in a console and know that that consistency is going to be there, I said, let's go ahead and do that. And people like that, customers like that. It does put something on that front end. Nobody can really, can't really measure it. You can't really articulate what that is, but boy, you can hear it. And it's subtle, but you can hear it. It's also on the main stereo output. We put the transformers there as well, and you can switch those in and out. So there's electronically balanced output and a transformer balanced output, and you can switch between that on the main output on the console. So that is something that was originally in. It was designed out, and then we designed it back in. So it's kind of a interesting little history there to how
Nice.
that all happened. And all the line inputs are electronically balanced. Insert points, everything is electronically balanced in and out of the console, and also feeding the converter system, and then that's feeding the Dante network as well. So
So your one of the only or few consoles that have conversion built into the console.
Yeah, I
And-
think it's still the only one, I think.
The only one on the
Yeah,
market.
I think so.
Yeah, maybe besides some prosumer,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
USB type converters. But as far as like large format, high end professional consoles, you're the only one. So, could you talk a little bit about the inspiration for incorporating the technology and how people are now that I know you're so hands on with all the console owners. You hear how they're using it and how they're integrating it. So, what's the sort of workflow and the use case for that technology being built into the console?
Well, first, why did we do it? Pretty simple answer. We had it. We'd already done the Dante development. We'd already had the converters developed for our other consoles that we were doing. So I just kind of thought it was a no-brainer. Interfacing an analog console can be tricky. Lots of cables, lots of connectors. And while this console has a 64 in and out converter system to Dante, it doesn't cover everything on the console, but it will knock out about 60% of your interfacing just by being able to plug into a network. So the inspiration was twofold. We already had the technology, and two, we wanted to make the analog console experience a little bit easier from a sales point of view, from an installation point of view. It can save some money, all those kind of things folded in, and that's what the customers like. I mean, when myself or Phil goes out to commission a console, we can flip that console up on its feet, and in 10 minutes, we're running audio through it, and you can go through and make sure everything's working and do the commissioning stuff very quickly, and it just blows people away. And it happens all the time. I roll it out of a flight case, and 5 minutes later, we're hitting play on a Dawn, and audio is coming through. And it's pretty. It sounds kind of cheesy from a sales point of view, but when you really think about installing a console and getting it ready, and then the workflow of being able to route the audio, pre and post the console into and out of a DAW. Very interesting. So now you can integrate your plug-in situation. All that patching is digital, but yet the console is completely analog. There's no digital component to it at all. So, and that's why we made the 500 series rack as well. Also has the Dante interface on it. So you can plug some 500 series modules. One thing you'll notice on this console, and I should point that out, there's no compressors on the console. And that's an interesting point. The early consoles we made never did have a compressor on the console. So I wanted to try and stay true to it. I didn't want to put 32 compressors in a console that maybe people don't like. Compressors are kind of a finicky type of outboard gear. I knew people would like the EQ and the filter, so we put those everywhere. But a compressor's a little bit different. So we didn't put it in the console. It saved a little bit of money, space, all those kind of things. But we did design the 500 series rack, so when you do have some outboard compressors in 500 series, they're sitting on the Dante network, and you can get in and out of them very quickly and easily and move that stuff around. So we kind of had an overall topology workflow type thing.
You save so
working
much
from the
money.
beginning.
You save so much money on patch bays and
Yeah,
cablings that
patch
it pays
bay,
for
yeah.
itself, really. Yeah.
You're still going to need a patch bay and cabling. It really reduces what you're going to need, and it allows you to think about really where to put your money when you're doing an install. And you can kind of piecemeal it, which is kind of nice. And we don't build patch bays for the console for that very reason, because if I put a patch bay on this console, it's going to have everything on there. And nobody really will ever need that. You can go, okay, well, I can get a big chunk of this on the network, and then I can figure out what do I really need to have on that patch and how you use it, depending on what you got in the rack, or depending on whether you're using plugins or however you're doing your outboard processing.
Just
So
curious, had you and your team measured the improvement in signal to noise ratio from having the converters in the console versus traveling to a patch bay and through cables?
no.
Okay.
never did that.
Okay. We're gonna do it.
You're going to do it,
Yeah.
and that's fine.
Okay.
But in the early days, consoles did have patch bays in them, and I built a lot of those consoles, and we tested it. Of course, we used the patch bay to get in and out and do the measurements. So I don't think you're going to find any kind of weird discrepancies or anything like that. But there is.
It's got to help. Yeah, it's got to help.
It will help at some level. It absolutely helps. So, and every little bit, makes a difference.
High quality audio is a
Yeah.
game of inches.
It
so,
is a
yeah.
game of millimeter,
Yeah.
it's a microscopic sometimes game, so you got to pay attention to that stuff. And we try to do that. We try to pay attention to things, useful things like a nice big armrest on this console. It's amazing when somebody hasn't seen this console, they come and go, oh man, I love that armrest. It's like,
Yeah.
you should hear the console. Yeah, but I like the armrest. And this shelf, you can set a very heavy set of speakers up here. And we made the console really, really ballsy because you just have to. If you're going to put a big armrest on like that, somebody's going to sit on it. And if they sit on it, you don't want it to tip over. You gotta think about those things. So a lot of little things went into the design.
Yeah, as for those
console.
watching online, you can't see, but it's the first thing you see when you walk into the showroom, and that's been people's first impression is the armrest and everything they can put on there. I could put my MIDI controller and my so
you can eat lunch, you can take a nap on there if you want to. It's, but it was intentional, and it drove a lot of the design because I wanted to keep everything within arm's reach. So two things happened. I wanted to put that big armrest on there. And you'll notice these modules are really wide. They're 2.1 inches wide, and traditionally we wouldn't have done that. Normally it's about 1.5 inches wide. If you look at the SSL consoles, they use a 1.5 inch center module, and that kind of makes everything a little bit compact. I got big fingers, and I wanted to be able to get my hands in on these knobs, so I thought maybe we'll kick that out a little bit wider. And a couple of things happened. One, let me put these meters down here on the input strip, which is really nice. So when you're looking down at the channel strip, the meters are right in front of you. And the second thing was it made the module a little bit shorter because I widened everything out, and it made the top to bottom height about 1.5 inches shorter. And I realized that if I sit in a chair with that big armrest, I can reach this top button without standing up, and that was ergonomically kind of a big deal. So I have long arms, but that was the task. Can I sit in a chair and reach that switch without standing up? And making that module a little bit wider also made the console a little bit wider, and we wanted to fill up the room. You buy a large format console, and it needs to be a large format console. So we killed a couple of birds with that stone by making it deep, having that armrest, keeping everything within arm's reach, all those little details, and they add up. You start checking those boxes, and wow, it's really comfortable when you sit on. You can reach everything, you can see everything, your muscle memory will adapt itself very quickly to the design. So it's kind of a philosophy there.
One workflow idea that Fady from SSL mentioned to me about the Dante converters being built into the console is the ability to print stems right from the console, because you have now 64 stems from the console back to the Dante connection to your DAW. And these days when there are analog mixes going on, a lot of labels and publishers are insisting on stems.
Yeah.
Because the artists are going to take the tracks and give them to a music director who puts them in Ableton, and then they go do a tour. They want playback or any sort of backing tracks to be essentially the same sound quality and the same performances as what's on the record, right? So the audience hears something that they're familiar with. So the ability to be able to print that right from the console, any work you do on the console in the analog domain can be saved. You have recall. You have the ability to give the live show stems. If you want to sync the song to a film or a commercial or something like that, you can do a remix or a instrumental, and you've got the same sort of sound qualities there. So I have a friend who's a professional mixer, and he had to write a special script to print stems for all of his outboard gear, and it now takes like 7 hours. He just basically, when he's done for the day, leaves it running overnight, and it's like printing a stem, creating a new track on a playlist, then muting everything else, and it's just going through one at a time. So it's like it's a 7-hour process. And fortunately he has his script down to the point where he trusts that it's working okay. but here you could kind of do that in one pass, right? You have everything, and too, it's like tube gear might sound a little bit differently 7 hours later. It's like to be able to okay, this is the mix. let's print the stems and just get it done in one pass instead of 7 hours.
Yeah,
I think
it's a big benefit.
Time
and
saver.
It's a time saver
Yeah.
for sure. So, yeah, wrapping stuff back through at Unity Gain. There's the 0 dB buttons all over the console, so you can bring everything back through at Unity Gain. You don't have to worry about it. The other cool thing is we made the monitor system 12 wide. So if you're doing a 7.1.4 Atmos render in Pro Tools or whatever, and you can kick that out to the Dante network, and we pick it up in the monitor module on the console, and we feed 12 speakers. You're not going to actually do the Atmos mix through the console, but you can listen to it in real time. And like you said, when you've got your stems and you can bring them back in, and you can A/B that, which is really quite useful. So you can monitor the rendered file, and then and monitor the stems and A/B that in real time, which is pretty interesting too, as well. So that network audio thing is pretty cool. It lets you get stuff in and out of the console quickly and repeatable. You can do it quick and get everything in where it's supposed to be very quickly, as opposed to patching everything around in an analog workflow.
Something else that you incorporated into this console is the ability to bypass the fader, the channel fader, and just bypasses the fader. You get a 0 dB signal so that you can do more automation in the computer. And
you can pass everything through, set everything at Unity Gain, including all the output faders. Every level control on here has a 0 dB function on there, so you just never have to worry about it. And that just completely bypasses the fader, which is like it's not even there. It's also something you'll notice on the console, and this is kind of a design philosophy that goes way back. You won't find any detented pots on this console. We never did do that on the consoles. David Harrison didn't like detented pots. They're not accurate. They're, the detent is, it's never, if it's a pan pot, it's never in the center. I mean, there's always a tolerance on each side. So if you want something exactly in the middle, the best way to do it is just remove the pot from the circuit, and then it'll be perfect. And so all these pan pots and everything has an in-out button on there, and what that does is it just removes that from the circuit completely. So if you want something exactly down the center, just take that pot out of the circuit, and it will be exactly in the center. Or these little trim pots up here for the line input. There's no detent on the center. There's a switch there. If you want it at Unity Gain, don't turn it on, and that pot will be bypassed. So that was kind of a philosophy thing that we brought forward too, and it just, again, microscopically makes it a little bit better. You don't have to worry about those inconsistencies, and there are tolerances. Analog signal processing is all about minimizing those tolerances and differences and all those kind of things. So,
what I like about this console, besides the sound quality, the build quality, the pedigree, making anybody who was to invest in this console confident that some of the best sounding records of all time were done on this console, is that it's very intuitive. Any freelance engineer can walk up to it and look at it and figure out how to route it and how to control the console within
very intentional.
Yeah, I mean, 5 minutes you're doing a session. And there's a lot of modern consoles where there's maybe some software controls, or there's multiple layers of buttons where one button does one thing, but then when you hit function, it does something else. And as an engineer, you have to sit down with the manual or AI for an hour and kind of figure out what you're doing, and then you can start. And so for a commercial facility to have something that you can just have a downbeat and get going right away.
That was a huge design criteria for me. We made the most complicated consoles in the world for a long time. Very complicated, large, big re-recording. I mean, so you can't even imagine how complicated those consoles are. But in a commercial studio where you have people booking a room, maybe they don't know this console. My thought was everybody's used an 8-bus console before. I mean, if you're going to walk in the studio, you have used an 8-bus console before. Somewhere along the line, in your church or somewhere, you've used a console, and that's basically what this is. Just a large format 8-bus console. And we just kept it simple. Mono channels, 8 bus outputs. You can layer those. You can do a lot with it. It's a very flexible architecture. But in 10 minutes, anybody can sit down and drive this console. And I mean, if you bring somebody in, you sit down and you go, okay, how does it work? Well, it comes in here and it goes out there and you listen to it here and you go, okay, well, I can do that. And then you can dive in and figure out how to layer those things or double bus things and all those kind of things. But it's very, very simple topology to the design and on purpose. And that's a hard thing to do. I'll tell you, when you can do anything, and even those early consoles were very complicated. All that switching and all the status stuff, I mean, nobody really knew how that worked. I didn't even know how that worked. I figured it out. But most people who were using those consoles had somebody push the right button, get it set to where they knew what was going to happen when they pushed those faders up, and really didn't mess with it too much. And also we pulled that for us. And if they're mostly using it like this, then maybe we ought to make the console actually work that way, and then you don't have to think about it. And I'm glad you said that, because it was a big deal, and it's hard to do. It's hard to pull back of all the things that you can do and really pare it down to what do you really need to do. And then in a commercial environment, you're absolutely right, man. If somebody's got to get a manual out, they're just not going to book your room. I mean,
job security for somebody.
It is.
But then it's phone calls at midnight for you when that person's
exactly.
sick with the flu.
I don't ever want that to happen. I want people to say exactly what you said. Hey, I sat down on the console and man, 10 minutes later we were rocking. And in fact, I had that conversation just yesterday with a guy in New York. They just installed a console just like this, and he said, "Man, we just went for it. We just got the drums going." And he said, in 20 minutes we were rolling. They'd never used the thing, never even seen the thing before. And there's a lot of value in that, and particularly in a commercial environment, because you don't have to be afraid of that, or your clients don't have to be afraid of that. So,
well, in a commercial environment, studio owners, they want pedigree.
Yep.
They want, it's almost a marketing investment. When you have a
Yeah.
console like this that has such a history, it helps sell the studio.
Mm-hmm.
They want the large footprint, right? To look serious and to kind of have that posturing in the room.
And it's got to sound good.
It's got to sound good, of course.
Yeah, of course.
And ease of use. So this really ticks all the boxes, and I'm really excited to see that you're back with solid state logic and being able to manufacture these in volume. And we welcome the folks that are here. We're going to do a break between streams, so if you want to have a little hands-on time with it, you're welcome. We have some sessions up. You can check it out. And then anybody who's watching online, just reach out to us. You can DM us or visit our website, provsv.com, and set up an appointment to come in and put your hands on it, put your ears on it, because it's really special. We want to share it with everybody. So I just wanted to give an opportunity. Is there anybody here who had any questions? No? Okay. Just want to check the chat. I don't think there's any questions from the chat.
That's because it's so easy.
It's so straightforward, yeah. It's a no-brainer.
Not a lot of questions is actually a good thing. That means that nobody's scratching their head, trying to figure out what is this thing.
And for a commercial studio, for people making this investment, obviously at this version of the console is about $100,000.
Yeah, right now.
What we end up doing with a lot of commercial studios and studio owners is a lease to own program,
Mm-hmm.
where they can make payments that are tax deductible over the course of the lease, and then at the end of the lease they own it. So it's like a really a way to kind of write off your gross income against your business, and at the end of the day, you own the console.
Yeah. You have something that 20 years from now is going to be exactly like it is today.
Yeah, timeless.
No software revisions, none of that kind of stuff. It will be the same.
Okay, great. So we are going to do basically All right, guys, you can go live whenever you want, whenever you're ready. Okay, we're streaming. Nobody's watching it this second. Dante, could you just give me the second camera? I just want to see that cut. Okay. Okay, great. We're going to go live. Hi, thanks for tuning in. This is Jeff here with Provident Sound and Vision. We are in our Gear Gallery showroom in Los Angeles, California. I am here with Fady Hayek from Solid State Logic. And in this stream, we're going to cover the SSL Origin Evo. This is the newest release, the latest generation of the SSL Origin console. We have a few people here that are in the showroom that are going to be learning about the console as well. If anybody on the stream has any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. And I'm just going to ask the folks here in-house. This is the second round they've gone through, so they know the routine. But just to say it, if you do have any questions, please let me know. Give me a wave, and I'll hand you the microphone. We're going to go through the new features of this console, but then also just the fundamental, the core of Origin, and sort of a walkthrough, workflow, philosophy of use, and then hopefully take some questions from the audience and answer some questions that we didn't think of. So tell us, Fady.
So we call it Origin because it really is the beginning of the SSL story. The 4000 series began at the SSL consoles, and the thing that has resonated throughout the years is how easy it is to work with, how musical it is to work with. And I was always a lot about making the console as musical as possible and making it as efficient for your workflow as possible. So that's been resonating since then. I mean, we still have a lot of people working with SSL 4000s, and we wanted to reproduce that for the new generation. So unlike the old ones, these actually run off of the power supply in your home. So, these are capable of working in anyone's home power. So they're very easy to work with. They're very compact. You can have them in 16-channel frame. You can have them in 32-channel frame. We have two variations of this now. We have the original Origin, which came in two variations, the 16-channel and the 32, and this is the Evo. So the Evo version includes some new features that pretty much put the entire 4000 package back together as it originally was intended. Just like the 4K, we got the microphone pre's on the top. This is an inline design console, which means that it is single channel here, but with two output paths. So you can take the microphone pre to the small or the large fader. There's a switch that always indicates small fader or large fader on the microphone pre. So for example, if I say I want to take the large fader and make that my digital workstation output, it's very easy to do that just by simply selecting it from up here. And what this does is it makes it possible for us to feed your computer and then feed the playback from the computer onto the large fader. So you're able to process pre-fader, pre-DAW and post-DAW. The first thing that most people miss on this concept is it makes the engineer's life so much easier, because imagine if you just walked into a recording studio and the first thing the engineer wants to do is they want to give the artist their headphone mix and they want to set their levels to their workstation. So by applying all of this over here on the small faders and sending the small faders to the DAW, the engineer can actually be now monitoring post-DAW, and even while a track is being recorded, they can be checking elements of the recording. They can be soloing, making sure the microphone positions on the bass guitar amp, for example, is in the right position. They could be making choices even during the rehearsal part, and very, very quickly and very easily. So having this dual element to a channel makes the workflow quicker, much more quicker. And more importantly, if you're working with digital workstations that have latency on them, typically that makes life very difficult when you're trying to monitor. So being able to, for example, selectively monitor things that are coming into the microphone pre before they go to the DAW means that you can do overdubs with elements that are playing back from the DAW. And then again, that frees you up for lots of overdub concepts. You can do multi-track overdubs. You can do individual vocal overdubs. It doesn't really matter. The engineer has easy access to how everything routes. And that really changes the dynamic big time for everyday use. And this is probably one of the reasons why the SSL 4000 and of course the Origin now is so beloved by users. It's kind of like, I look at it and it's like, okay, this is an English butler that says yes to everything you ask it to do. And it just comes right through for you. So aside from the microphone pre here, we also added a harmonic processor we call Pure Drive. Now, you see this in our Pure Drive microphone preamps. Pure Drive is a harmonic processor, for lack of a better word. Think of it as a very finely tuned distortion unit. And the whole idea is to give you the tone that you'd expect from the mix bus of an SSL. So there was always some kind of artifact. And the problem with the old SSLs was you only could find it at a very, very specific place, and you had to kind of know what you were doing. And sometimes you don't even catch it right. This driver is actually much more easier to use. You can either engage it or disengage it. So if you don't want the drive, you want the clean signal, you can make channels clean, or you can make them process through this drive. So what this microphone pre really is, it's actually two different microphone pre's. So if you want the clean SSL sound, you got that. If you want some of the classic SSL sound, you can get that with that switch.
Pardon my ignorance. Is that new to the Evo version?
That's actually to all the versions.
All Origins,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Since we've started with the original Origin, we introduced it on the original Origin, and we've kept it along the way. So from there, we've got the direct out path, so you can variate the gain output for your A to D from over here without necessarily having to process it through the fader. If you choose not to, you can do that. You can just select small fader, large fader for your gain output. From there, you can apply that gain output to the direct out. So this could either go through the mix buses here, or it can go direct out on the channel itself. You have the option of either or. So why would you want that? So let's say, for example, I'm recording a combination of tracks onto a stereo recording. A pair of tracks. I can select those, and as a matter of fact, let me clear the buses out for now. So what I just did is I can select these buses. So let's say these are my drums, but I don't have enough tracks and I want to record them to a stereo group. I can then select that, apply 1 and 2. I can even tell it to apply the panner to that signal path. So I can pan the signals appropriately. And essentially what I've just done here is I made a little sub mixer right inside. And that can go to 2 buses, which are controlled right over here. And you can then send that to a recorder if you want from there. You can do this, times 8 if you want. But again, it's open to interpretation of how you go about using it. So there's really no right or wrong way to use it. But what's really nice about these buses is, unlike the original console, where it kind of was somewhere about here where the meter bridge was, you had all these switches on there. Mm-hmm. And those were a lot of switches and a lot of points of failure.
Yeah.
So what we did here, we loved this idea, was we borrowed the technology from the Duality. And the Duality had switching that was done digitally controlled switching. So what you're seeing here is actually a relay switch. That's a digital switch. There's actually no moving parts involved in this. So we can have the the same features we used to have without all those extra switches, which makes this product really stable long-term. The long-term ownership prospect of this outweighs pretty much every other console on the market. I mean, I'll do a lot of interesting things like hold these buttons down and we'll do a one channel to one bus assignment. So if I select this, it'll tell me this channel is connected to this bus. If I do it the other way around, tell me what's on bus number 10. It will blink and indicate to me that it's over there. So it communicates bidirectionally that way as well. And it will retain those controls even when I put it to sleep. That's the other nice thing about this, is it's very environmentally conscious. It'll go from 1,000, maximum 1,000 watt, all the way down to 40 watts, which is basically a lava lamp, for lack of a. So it'll go to sleep if you don't use it, and then you just hit the button and it'll just wake itself back up. So you don't really ever have to shut it off if you don't want to shut it off. What's nice about not showing it off is it remembers all this routing for you. So the rest, of course, is our auxes. What we did with the original console, we used to have the auxes down here. We flipped them up to the top, mainly because it was the right idea the whole time. I think access to the EQs was much, much more important. And what's nice is you don't have to constantly be leaning forward to do that. So having it down here makes a lot more sense. You've got 2 stereo auxes with panners and 4 mono auxes as well. And each aux can go to either small fader or large fader. Case in point here, let's say you have a Bricasti reverb. You want to apply a reverb just for the headphone mix. You don't want it to go to tape. You can do it by applying the small fader to the aux, I should say the aux to the small fader, and you can do reverb mixes pre-DAW that way. Going down the list, this is where the Evo changes. It has a big difference from the original Origin, is we've added the dynamic section. So this is the dynamic section from the E-dynamic section that we have in modular form. So you've got a compressor and you have an expander gate. You're able to either, again, move the path from the small fader to the large fader. So let's say you're tracking a vocal and you want the compressor on the vocal. You can put it before it goes to the DAW, or you can put it in playback again. Same idea. One thing that's really, really cool about this is that you can also put it in links. So you can have the adjacent channels link to each other. So if you're working in stereo channels, you can hit the link button, and that will allow you to link them together. And the other element applies to the filters. The original Origin had only a high-pass filter on it. We added a low-pass filter on this version. So you have a high and low-pass filter. Again, switchable to both paths, but also it's switchable to sidechain. So you can put it into dynamic sidechain. This button here allows us to take the filter and take it out of signal and use it as a trigger or as a key for the compressor. So let's say, for example, you want the compressor to react only to certain frequencies. You want to tailor what the compressor is triggering to. You can adjust the filter in signal so you can hear this is the frequency I want, and then hit the sidechain. And now the compressor just triggers when that frequency kicks. So a lot of really cool sidechain elements to the original 4K that a lot of people use in different styles of music all throughout the last 40 years. I mean, that's the nice thing about this product, is that there is so much use case available to you. And these are some of the really cool features that made that easy to get to. The EQ is featured here just in the original one. So you got the 4-band EQ, mid bands are fully parametric. The high and low shelf can also be put into a fixed parametric setting by hitting the bell button. It's pretty much the most popular EQ we've ever made. We've made a lot of them over the years. The EQ is been the most popular. So we retained that on this version. And going down the list to the small fader has the same accessibility as the large fader. So meaning you have a cut, you have a solo, and you have an insert point. The insert point can also be pre or post whatever dynamic or EQ you set up. So if you want your insert to happen before the EQ, or you want the insert to happen before the dynamic, you have the ability to flip signal paths uniquely per channel. So, and that's discrete insert, because you also have another insert on a large fader. So in total, this console has 32 inserts on it. And if you put it into, if you select, for example, the mix bus over here, what that does is it allows us to send the fader directly to the stereo bus. By doing that, you've actually multiplied these channels into more input channels for mixing. So some people have always asked me, well, I have space for a 16 channel. Can I actually add more outboard microphone pre's to this? And the answer is yes, you can. You would be using up that extra channel, but there's nothing keeping you from dropping in an extra microphone pre, an outboard microphone pre, and having a 32 channel mixer in the space of what you see here. Of course, if it's a 32 channel, you can do 64 channels of mic pre's that way. So it's incredibly flexible if you decide you want to grow into something much bigger. And of course, all this applies to both cases, the Evo and the original Origin. The other thing I wanted to mention was the small fader to large fader. This is the classic parallel processing trick that a lot of people do on SSLs, in that you can apply that insert point with an effect. So let's say, for example, you wanted the compressed sound, and you wanted a wet compressed sound, and you want to be able to mix it with the uncompressed sound. So at various parts of the song, this parallel trick allows you to really play with when the compression, when the effect kicks in, or for that matter, you can do a wet dry with the clean signal and the wet signal. So what it does is it ties both channels together, but it gives you some really neat parallel processing effects. And from there, it takes us to the center section. The center section, you may have noticed, is rack mount. It's standard 19-inch. Back over here, there's enough depth to put 500 series modules into it. We offer a 500 series rack over here that fits perfectly right into these two slots. So if you wanted to add some outboard gear, you can. Essentially, it's just convenience. It really has no direct connectivity to the modules. You basically connect them to the back of the desk or through a patch bay. But it makes it real simple for you to have everything in the center section. The other nice thing is that this master section here, as well as this section, are modular. They can be moved up here. So one example, a lot of people will use a UF8 to add a controller, and they will move this up here and put the controller here. What we've done with the new frame is that we made it possible for you to remove the front buffer and set up your own buffer if you want, or custom buffers if you want. And it uses a standardized track, aluminum track for that. But the other nice thing is that there is a kit that allows you to take the buses, the groups over here, and move them up here and put the controller down there. So it gives you a nice even flow between analog faders and control faders. And the other nice thing is, of course, you don't have to move this up here if you don't want to. You have options. We've had people put, for example, Blackmagic monitors down here. So if they're working on video as well as audio, they can actually see their monitors here, or they can even see them up here, because this is also mobile. It could be brought down here.
Interesting.
So if you want like a Blackmagic, monitor system, you could put it right up there. it's really cool in that you can design it however you'd like. And of course, the master section brings it all home. Of course, you've got your master bus over here. You've got an insert point on that. You've got 4 speaker configurations, one of which is actually controlled by this knob. So typically, this is used as your control room headphone system, but you can actually feed it from the back and have an extra set of speakers if you want to use that up for that reason. So it gives you an extra volume control. And all of these are, you can adjust the gain so that if you have, for example, a set of speakers that are gain adjusted differently, you can match the gain so that when you're switching from one to the other, everything is gain matched from one to the other. 4 returns that are available here, which are accessible to the buses. So we've had people, for example, take the reverb and add it, want to drop it into an EQ. So by folding it into one of the mix buses, taking the mix bus to an EQ, EQing that reverb, and then feeding it to this fader, yeah, you can do that. Again, it's that lovely butler who can say, yes, sir, I can have that ready for you in a few seconds. So it's really easy product to work with. And last, of course, the bus compressor is here. It wouldn't be an SSL without an SSL bus compressor, and that's hardwired to the mix bus. There is a talkback system, of course, over here. And yes, it does have the famous listen mic compressor. Yes, you can feed it from an external microphone. Yes, you can take the gain output and record it, like Phil Collins did and Peter Gabriel did a long time ago. So you've got that same trick available to you. And last but not least, all of these groups, generally, people will look at this and say, oh, these are group faders, so these are VCAs. Actually, they're not. They're analog faders. So if you want to forego the use of the buses in mixdown, let's say you've got synthesizers. You got a few synthesizers. They all have a lot of stereo outputs. Stereo phase integrity sometimes could be very, very easy to mess up. Nice thing about these faders is that they're phase stereo faders. It's a stereo channel. You can use it as a regular stereo channel, adding an additional 16 inputs to the desk. So when you boil it all down, you've got 16, 16, 16, and not counting these 8 additional faders. You've got a lot of flexibility for pretty much anything you throw at this thing. A lot of value for the dollar when you factor in something like this used to be around $250,000 in 1985 money.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I hear a lot of people seeing the 1985 consoles that you can now purchase for $20,000, $25,000.
Yeah.
But the first thing you have to do is replace all those switches.
Oh yeah.
And then moving it across the country is $10,000.
And then reassembling it when it gets there.
And the power supplies you mentioned, this can plug into the wall.
Yeah.
What draws about
standard
5 amps?
15 amp breaker, no problem. It doesn't draw more than I think about 11 something amps max, and that's the 32 channel with everything engaged and going. So it is a very efficient desk on power. So yeah, I mean it's a home appliance, and the best phrase I can give it is it's just as normal as plugging in a toaster to your home outlet, and it makes it real flexible for somebody to put in their their basement studio, their kitchen if they wanted to. It's just very easy and flexible to and friendly. Yeah. And unlike the original console, that needed industrial power. You needed 70 amps coming into your home.
Air conditioning for it.
And separate air conditioning. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the practicality is definitely all there.
Very cool. I love all the routing flexibility. You can literally do anything. Anything you want. You have a creative idea, you can execute it. Very easily, and it's so visual. I mean, you could learn it within minutes. Just follow this, follow
the signal path from top to bottom. It's very, very simple, easy to learn. Within a few minutes, you're up and running and you understand how to work with it.
And we do have another video coming online. It's going to be published. It's edited. It's going to be Friday or Saturday. It's going to be released, but it'll be on our YouTube channel, and it does walk through the entire channel strip with Phil Schultz. We went through that, and we have macro shots of every single knob and button, so you'll be able to. It'll be chapterized. You can kind of follow the chapters and click and see exactly the tour of the path. It was a little difficult to do that with the stream, and you know, couldn't have Dante sitting in a perch up there. So we have that other video coming soon. Check our YouTube channel for that. It gets more into, it's almost like a manual, the way we walk through the channel strips, but I really appreciate how you went through the workflow.
I have to commend you. The space is such a wonderful space. It's so nice to be able to come in and sit down quietly and work with this. So congratulations on the new facility. It looks
Thank you.
It's wonderful.
Thank you, I appreciate it. So we wanted to welcome any questions. Do you guys have any questions about the console? Nothing? I bet you will as soon as you stand up. And that's what happened last time. We just went through this with the Harrison, if anybody's been watching the stream since then. And then as soon as we turned off the cameras and everyone gathered around the console, we had like 25 minutes more of just really great Q&A. So I'm going to leave the mics and the cameras on in case that happens again. It'll just be this nice organic conversation. I'm just going to check the chats and see if there's any questions there. All right, well, if anybody's watching or watching this in retrospect, I do want to invite you to come into our showroom. We have these consoles wired up and available for demo. The folks here are going to get a chance to come up and put their hands on them, but we have 24 channels going into both consoles, so we can run an entire mix through. If you're interested in the consoles, you can sit down privately and really spend some time. Myself and the rest of my team are well versed on the consoles, and then we have the team at SSL and Speed Dial if we need to get deeper.
We're local.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. We're going to be hanging out for a few minutes here if you do have any questions, if anything comes up. But I'd like to welcome everybody to gather around the console and take a look.
All right. Welcome. It doesn't bite, I promise. Yeah. So you see the buses there going to mixed bus. It doesn't have to work that way. Realize, that's just one way to work.
Yeah, because you could also send it to these faders and then send that. Or
right. You can send these faders to the bus.
Right.
And that bus can be controlled from here. You can then. Here's one example. A lot of people who have like a multi-channel, like an Avion monitoring system for their headphones. These are actually fantastic for being able to build a quick multi-channel mix to that, because it's a D-sub connector with 2 D-sub connectors with 16 outputs. Oh, okay. So for example, you can say, I want that channel to go to this bus, or create groups of buses and make a quick, easy collection of mixes that the artist can then control for themselves. If they prefer to work that way, because you still have the direct outs to go to the DAW. You don't lose that. You still have that. So that's one other thing that I've noticed a lot of engineers with SSLs will do, because it just makes getting up and running so much quicker.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people who don't have a console or haven't had the opportunity of working on a console might say, why do you need a console in this day and age when it's all in the DAW? But that workflow and being able to, when you have an entire band standing around and waiting to start recording,
exactly,
and being able to just get up headphone mixes, get sounds, check phase,
yeah.
I
mean, and not interrupt the artist, because the artist is there to do what the artist does really, really well, and the best way they can do that is for you to stay out of their way. And if you have technical elements or technical considerations you have to think about, the last thing you want to do is say, hang on a second, I got to reroute my Pro Tools direct out so that you don't hear a phasing on your headphone mix. And that just breaks the flow of the creative process. So that's really the short answer is why you need a console. It just gets you up and running. Stays out of the way and does the job really well, and then keeps the engineer doing what the engineer needs to do, and gives the artists what they need to do, which, and capture their magic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super fast, very intuitive. And then we'll see, like this console, we didn't touch on this in your presentation, but this console also has the fader bypass 0 dB buttons.
Oh, you're right. Yes,
Yeah.
we didn't. Yeah, that's something that a lot of people love to work with, because what they're doing in their mix often today is they're doing their automation in the computer. So they're very intuitive. It's very easy to do. You can go to your control surface and ride the faders using the UF8, and you don't want to necessarily want to think about the additional fader on here. So by simply disengaging it with the 0, it makes that automation inside the DAW. You can then render that back from the console, multi-channel, into the DAW, and do it again, and do it again, and do it again. And a lot of people are like, why would you do that? Well, look at all the cool outboard gear and all the cool EQ you have.
Yeah.
So you can do multi-passes this way without the interference of the fader. So it's all in unity gain, and it's perfect for that.
And then you can use the direct outs to print all the outboard gear that you're
Yeah,
that you're
exactly.
using
Yeah,
and save it. And like
Yeah.
we talked about, it's kind of a demand these days to deliver stems
that's
that
right.
reflect all the
That's
outboard
right.
gear
Yeah,
and all the
yeah.
yeah.
So even though you can't instantiate a whole bunch of pieces of outboard gear, you can render them,
yeah.
and it's just a different, workflow.
Yeah, I used to have a Trident 80C,
Mm-hmm.
and I would mix in that same sort of way where during tracking, using all the sends and for headphone mixes and
Mm-hmm.
reverb in the headphones, and then when I would mix, I would use it like a big summy mixer,
Right.
but I'd have to run tone and
Right.
go channel by channel running tone to make sure
To
I'm
make
at
sure you're
0.
gain,
Yeah,
exactly.
so just hitting the 0 dB button, that probably took me, I don't know, a good day, 10 minutes, it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
so that saves a lot of time. And then there's
Absolutely.
always just like the lack of confidence, like if you barely touch a fader.
Or somebody bumps into a
something-
fader,
yeah, something
and you're
bump-
like, shoot, okay.
Yeah, so you got to run tone again. And
Yeah.
So I'm really glad that you guys are incorporating that in everything you're making now, because it's really listening to the way people want to work. And
Yeah, yeah, and then it's a slight adjustment from the way people used to work versus what they work now, but it's definitely very useful. Yeah. Oh, and there's this one other little trick, which is variable. Let's see if I can locate it upside down. Variable solo. This is a little trick that came up in one of the AES. We back in the day, we used to have this round table of engineers. Every year we would do this yearbook of engineers and work that was done that year on SSL, and it was this beautiful book that was made of leather and the whole 9 yards. And we would publish all the works that were done by all the engineers and producers. And those guys would come out, and those ladies would come out for the roundtable after the AES show, and they would throw at us all these wonderful, sometimes really crazy idea. One of the crazy ideas was variable solo. And what that does is it allows you to vary how much the solo affects the solo on here. So in other words, typically when you hit solo, everything else goes away. Well, what if you're only trying to focus on that element, but you still need the context of the rest of the mix? By creating a variation on the amount of solo you have. So now it's just making everything a little bit lower and focusing you on that one element in context with the rest of the mix. So it's really, really much, much better way of figuring out how to fix a problem on a channel in context with the rest of the mix.
I think it's a bad habit a lot of people do is they solo a track and they make it sound pretty on its own.
Yeah,
And then
and then they realize like, oh,
yeah,
that was a little
yeah,
too much.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
really, when you're mixing, the goal of an EQ is to balance that track with the other elements, not as if it was standing on its own island. So
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah, so
exactly.
it's really
So you end up doing it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. But that was that's again one of those neat little tricks that came out of those dialogues, and we've always been like that. It's just one thing that's nice about SSL is we're always listening to what our clients are telling us, and we're always taking it into account. 0 dB is one example of that. The master section being a rack-based system is another example of that. So it's just the kind of thing that we pride ourselves in making sure that our clients are listened to and we deliver on what they're looking for.
We have a question from the chat. They're asking, is the variable solo unique to Evo, or is it on the original Origin as well?
No, it's on the original Origin.
It's on
yeah,
the original Origin
yeah,
as well.
yeah. This is standard on the master section, which really is the same master section as the original Origin.
Very cool. Okay.
Now, quickly, how did you do the routing so the channels routed to each bus?
Well, okay. First of all, just so note, you can bypass this by doing that, hitting the Shift button and selecting the area that you want to bypass. Now I basically have done what would normally take me about 10 minutes to press every button. I just did in one motion like that. However, this trick that I showed you before is just that you hold the area that you want to apply the buses to, and it will do a consecutive route to each bus.
These were flashing while he was holding it.
Yeah. Now, if you have a 32 channel, it will repeat. So the 32 channels on the other side will repeat because you have 16 buses and 32 channels. We don't have that here, so it won't overlap. But it makes it real simple for you then to say go through each one. Because sometimes what you might be doing is, I'll zero these out again like that. You can say, okay, these are my 4 channels of drums. Okay, I want those on 1 and 2. So now they're going to be on 1 and 2 here. But I also want to apply the panner to that route. Now, typically when this is in the up position, it's going to both buses that have been selected. If I want to apply the pan position of the channel, I then select follow pan path. Now this panner varies between 1 and 2, effectively creating a stereo group for you that way, which then can end up on. Now this is a choice, by the way. You don't have to send these here. As a matter of fact, they're not routed directly. You'd have to route them through your patch bay. And what we typically, when we do our patch design, we recommend that people normal these buses to these faders so that that signal already just goes right through until you decide, oh, I want to use those faders for something other than the buses.
Or you have an insert point in between.
Or you can build a virtual insert, a rudimentary insert point right through the patch bay. Yes, right. Yeah, so that adds, some more flexibility to how you can apply those groups. I particularly go to them all the time for synthesizers because they just sound amazingly good. Because one fader, everything is an exact stereo. There's no way I can screw it up. Never, and it just works perfectly like that. Here, I could always, get it slightly wrong, like you were saying earlier. You could, maybe shift it slightly to one side, the other side. That might not be exactly what the synth sound is. You won't have that problem on the group fader.
So I can't do the math in my head. Let's see. We've got 16 times 3, so that's 48,
and plus 8.
48 channels that have faders.
Right.
Plus 8.
Yeah, and which have the knobs for the returns.
56 inputs.
56 inputs.
When you mix down in
on this frame.
And this footprint.
Yeah.
Which is,
it's 88 on the bigger guy.
Yeah, this is very accommodating for the modern studio.
Oh yeah, the space and what you can get with this,
Yeah.
it's amazing. And that's before you even talk about outboard. Eventually we all accumulate outboard, and it's easy these days to do that. We can even give you rack-based versions of these microphone pre's. So if you want, you say to yourself, you know what, 16 isn't enough anymore. I need another 8 or another 16. You can buy one of our quad or octo pre's, and it's the identical microphone pre to what's in the console. You can add more pre's to the desk. Simple. And it's matched. They're all matched.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You and I were talking about, you said I was getting extra nerdy about having like a matching slew rate of when you have a whole series of preamps. Like these days, so many people are Frankensteining preamps, and they've got Neve and SSL and APIs and some tubes, and then you try and mix that all together.
Yeah.
and it just doesn't gel. And a lot of the records we've been talking about all day, like some of the best-selling records of all time, were all done on a console. They might have had a couple of pieces of outboard gear, maybe, but you know, historically it would just be done on a console. And when everything is tracked and mixed with a matching preamp, it just glues together very
Yeah,
organically.
yeah, and it wasn't even consideration back then that this is a problem, because it just worked.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and it does bring a variable that people didn't think about. There you go. You just did it.
Yeah. That's neat.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
and it remembers that.
Just gonna save me time.
Yeah, so you know when it does go to sleep, because you can actually use these buttons over here to control how much time expires before it goes into sleep mode. So it begins with 5 minutes of no activity, and what I mean by no activity is no audio coming through the circuits. If it sees no audio coming through, it will assume nobody's here. I'm going to go to sleep after 5, but you can make that up to, I think it's 35 seconds, if I remember the manual, based on how you configure these 5 buttons. It will give you various numbers of sleep time. So yeah, and then once you wake it up by hitting the wake up button, it will flash that really cool name on the front here, and it'll pick up. And it won't damage your speakers when you do this, because it does a really slow rise onto your speaker, a slow drop, so you don't get a pop that could damage your monitors. So it's it's controlling that as well.
Nice. Well, we're going to go ahead and turn off the stream. We're doing one more live stream covering the SSL controllers and the 360.
Yep.
That's going to be in about 4 o'clock Pacific time. But we'll go ahead and cut the stream. We have some sessions if you guys want to bring them up on either the console and get in and hear some drums or some vocals. We can't stream that because it's copyrighted music and we'll get struck down. But we'll go ahead and turn the stream off now. And again, if you're watching and you want to come demo these consoles for yourself, we welcome you to visit our website, provsv.com. You can email us there and set up an appointment to bring in your own session, hear your music on these consoles. We'd love to have you, and if you have any questions, please reach out. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you soon at 4 o'clock.
Hi, everyone. We're here at Providence Sound and Vision at our Gear Gallery in Los Angeles. I'm Thomas. I'm here with Fady from SSL, and we're going to go over the SSL control surfaces, plugins, show you how it all incorporates into Pro Tools, and yeah, excited for this little demo. Excuse me while I put down the mic very gently. Okay.
Nice.
All right, Fady. Where do I start?
Okay, well, I mean, most people probably already aware we make a lot of modular products, and the whole idea of modular products is to take exactly what we've designed for the big consoles and bring it to a scale that works for everyone who has in-the-box recording studio, for example, and just needs small parts. Part of that, of course, is how does one achieve the workflow of a console? I mean, we've already done 2 demos, and you can see the advantages of working in a console workflow. So how do you bring that to the computer, to the digital workstation user? And what often is the go-to thing is to go to a controller. And as you see here with the UF8 and the UF1, there's also a UC1, which is the channel controller. These emulate what a console does. And they work in multiple different ways. So in the case of Pro Tools, we're working with the Huey protocol to work and interface with Pro Tools. The problem with the protocols that you see like MCU and Huey is there really is no traffic cop, if you will. The parameters of the plugins typically for multiple manufacturers kind of fly in various different combinations. So where on a console you go to the high shelf EQ, it's always a high shelf EQ. The advantage of that workflow is that you remember it. It becomes muscle memory. You don't think about it after a while. The problem, of course, is if you're working with multiple different plugin vendors and you go to a controller and the controller spreads the parameters everywhere arbitrarily, then you're constantly hunting. And by that definition, it sort of negates the whole usefulness of a controller. Why go hunting for something in multiple menus where you can just look up and go to your mouse and point on it and bam, done. Problem solved. So what this basically means is that the digital workstation was designed for this communication system, the screen, the mouse, and the keyboard. So what we did is we developed what we call a middleware, and the middleware is called SSL 360. So that lives in the background. So when you open up the SSL 360, it basically shows you what's transpiring inside your software. And the way it does that is by working with plugins that are 360 compliant. Now, all of our channel strips, for example, they're all 360 compliant. So let's say if I put a channel strip on every one of my tracks here, what happens automatically is these plugins begin to communicate exactly what's transpiring on the channel. Its name, its configuration, its routing. And then when you go over to the 360, you can press the 360 button there. Okay? It replicates that here. So what you're actually looking at here is a more organized SSL-like interface of what's transpiring in your DAW. It isn't a copy or an extra engine or anything like that. It is just a workflow redesign. So what we do typically with our controllers is we have a layer system. So you have, if you go to layer number 1 up on top, now what you're looking at in the interface now is how Huey translates Pro Tools. And a few of the things you begin to notice right away is like the abbreviations are very, very small. The meters are very granular. And you don't really get a lot of detail. And if you open up, for example, hit the plugin button, right there,
yeah.
okay, and select, let's say, channel number 1 and hit select on the button on number 1, on fader 1.
Oh.
There you go. Okay, so what you're now seeing is you're seeing a page of the parameters of those plugins. And it only shows you 4 banks of parameters at a time. You can actually see that page right
Oh
there,
yeah,
page 1
of 17.
of
Yeah.
17. So as you scroll along, you're seeing the various pages that pertain to the plugin on that channel. And it's kind of, again, it unfortunately makes you hunt for what you're looking for rather than to quickly see it. Now, if we go over to another layer, and that layer is called the SSL plugin layer, if you press the number 3 layer, which is what I've assigned it to, notice what just happened to your displays. Now you're seeing the unabbreviated version of the channel name. You're seeing the gain of the compressor and the gate meter. You're seeing the color selected of the channel. So all this is the only thing that's just happened just now is we have reorganized everything that's already taking place. We can get to parameters either from this device of our plugin, so you can select the plugin control, and this essentially shows you now the various plugins. You can also see them down here, and by simply touching the fader, Pro Tools matches that. This fader matches that. If this is set to a focus mode, it will also match that. And if you have the UC1, it will also flip. So what happens is, whether you're working focused on this device and you're selecting different channels, or you're still working on your mouse and you want the UC1 to be your plugin controller, or the UC1, you're dialing different tracks from a UC1, or you're dialing different tracks from this device, they all chase each other. Rather than you look for things, they come to you. So right away, it just changes the dynamic of the workflow so that things immediately come to you rather than you have to go to them. And usually the first question people ask me is, well, this is great if you're working with SSL plugins. Now the good news, of course, is thousands of recordings have been made on SSL. So I think you're in good hands if you're working with SSL plugins. However, we are in a free society, and therefore we probably want to work with different plugins. So what we've done with SSL 360 is we added what we call a link plugin. So if you go to the layer, again, layer number 1, and select the 360 button, so we can get that page out of the way. Select it again. Sorry. Okay, so we're back in Pro Tools. Okay, and if you want to drop in, go over to whichever channel is fine, and select one of the SSL link plugins. They should be down here, I think, on this. There they are. Okay. So what you notice is it looks a lot like a channel strip, but it's lacking parameters.
Right.
So what this is, it's basically a shell. And generally, we provide a number of already pre-done shells for this. So if you select, go ahead and configure link, okay, and select the plugins. So it wants to make sure that you're in the actual plugin library, which you are.
Okay.
Okay, so select that.
This one.
Probably, yeah. Select the VST31.
Oh.
Oh, you actually just deselected it.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
I can do that again. It's
It should
this,
be...
right? Library.
Yeah, look for the VST plugins. Or maybe it's in the plugin folder itself. Sorry about that.
It's all good. That was my fault. So we're in the plugin folder.
It's right in there. Okay. Yeah, try that one more time. So select the plus button. Okay, select the plugin with just one click on it. Okay, and
Oh,
select
there.
VST.
There
you
we
go.
go.
Now, all right. So what this will do is it will scan or map the available plugins. So hit the mapping. Let's have it. I'm assuming we actually have VST plugins on this computer. I hope we do.
Maybe maybe we don't. It is a new computer, so we'll see.
Ah, okay.
That could be a problem,
Okay.
or part of the problem.
All right. So what this will do is it will look in that directory that we just selected,
Right.
and it will look for VST3 plugins. Now we're running Pro Tools, and the first thing people say is like, wait a minute, you can't run VST3 plugins in Pro Tools. Well, you can now.
Right.
And the reason why is we're using this as a host for those plugins.
Mm-hmm.
Once you select and assign and drop in those plugins, let's see what we got available here.
And click to load.
Yeah, just drop that down.
Yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
we may not have anything.
Yeah, you may not. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Should have checked that earlier.
It's all good.
So you'll see the list of available plugins here. Once you select one, it'll open up the user interface, the normal user interface. And there's a number of ways then you can dial in parameters. If it's not already been mapped, it will automatically give you this interface. But if it was already mapped, then these parameter buttons and knobs and faders will be mapped already to you.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say they weren't. What you can do is you select the parameter from the host interface and dial it to a particular knob. So what you're doing is you're telling it, I want this parameter to go to that knob. I want this parameter to go to that knob. And once you've done this once, the next time you instantiate the plugin, this automatically maps.
Right.
Because it's keeping a user-definable map. And you can make multiple user-definable maps. So in the event you use a plugin two different ways, like FabFilter, for example, you might have two different applications for it, and it has quite a lot of parameters on it. So you might want to have two different ways of dealing with it. You would be able to do different mappings that way. Once these mappings are established, then the UC1 as well as the UF8 and UF1 will follow the same dynamic you just saw us earlier with the channel strips from SSL. So this opens the door for somebody to design any plugin into this workflow. And like I said earlier, the whole point is really to keep you from having to hunt for aspects of the parameters. And what happens then, of course, is your focus becomes here, especially during mixing. And that's when you realize after a bit, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not actually looking up at the screen as much as I used to. And it's quite an interesting moment, and I can only explain it from my own experience, was that I actually started to think like I would be thinking on a mixing console versus thinking visual dynamics against what I'm seeing and what I'm controlling with my hand. So your brain starts to acclimate differently to the process. And that was exactly the purpose of these three series of controllers, is to provide that same integration that you would have on a mixing console without having to lose your favorite plugins in the process. Keeping your favorite plugins is part of the point. Using the SSL plugins is, of course, part of the point as well. So if you have Harrison plugins, you have different manufacturers' plugins, it doesn't really matter as long as you put in the time to do this mapping, or unless, of course, it's already been mapped. Like a lot of universal audio channel strips have been mapped. Waves plugins have been mapped. A number of them have already been pre-mapped. But again, like I mentioned, if you don't like the way they were mapped, you can change it. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, and the controllers themselves, often what happens is we get clients who start with one. So typically, if somebody is looking for more fader control, they will lean towards the UF8. because obviously it's got a lot of faders. But what immediately becomes evident is I've got things like transport control available to me over here. This becomes my transport controller. When I select this, you see there's a green button there.
Right.
That's transport
Yep. and
forward, backwards.
Cursor's going. Yeah.
Yeah, cursor's going.
Yeah.
So it does have some transport control, not as detailed as the UF1,
Sure.
but the UF1 gets into a lot more transport detail and less faders, single fader control. So this works for somebody who just likes to dial one fader at a time and adjust the fader. Where this works from a different perspective. It works from being able to see multiple faders. You can scan left and right, you can bank left and right, you can, and of course you can select your parameters from there. This will show you a more of a classic multi-channel console device, where this will show you a single fader with heavy emphasis on the transport section. It's not one way versus the other, because I can still get to my plugins like I do over here. So the first question most people ask us is, well, why would you put two of them side by side? Well, what you could do, for example, is you can use one of our plugins called the meter plugin. And the meter plugin gives you a Lysygy meter, it gives you VU meters, and you can adjust what you're seeing right from the screen over here. So by default, what you're done if you use this display is you've dedicated the purpose of this display to your master system, your master bus, if you will. As a matter of fact, you can even do something like this. You can hit master and actually lock this to, let me see if I get to the right plugin control. And I just realized I didn't have that set up right. So when you hit the master button, what happens is this stays on a specific fader. And that could be one of your mixed bus faders on Pro Tools, or it could be your main master fader. So as you bank left and right on this, this stays where it is, and it continues to be your master control. So all I've done really is I have dedicated this device to be my mix bus and my transport control. Can it do everything the UF8 does? Yes, it can, if you change how you use it. But you can, when you're working in this kind of mode, what happens is this adds unique features that gives you access all the time to your main mix bus, gives you access to your transport all the time. It gives you access to your meters all the time. And this will give you access to all of your tracks all the time. And then when you add the UC1, pardon me, what that does is that gives you that more exploded channel view of the channel itself. Whereas here you can see a parameter at a time and you can bank per parameter. The UC1 explodes everything in one view, and you've got one knob, one function per parameter for all the plugins that you work either in SSL Link or the SSL channel strips, for example. So when you touch this, the UC1
Will explode. Yeah.
what's on that channel.
Right.
And when you touch one of the knobs on the UC1, it will reference those parameters across all the channels. So it's about focus rather than, it's about purpose. They do a lot of the very same things, they just do them differently if you are a user of one of each. But when you marry them together and you dedicate each of them to a specific purpose, that's when the whole kind of grand design of the whole system comes together.
Sure.
And what's most importantly is that now you're using both hands. Typically what I do is I'm selecting channels with my left hand, and I'm dialing parameters with my left hand, and with my right hand, excuse me. So it becomes much more flexible for the user.
Sure.
we were kind of born with these things, so it's nice to be able to use them.
Yeah, and how many control surfaces can you tie together? Because they all daisy chain one to the other, so you're not using so many ports on your computer.
That's right.
But how many? What's the scalability of this?
Well, the scale is 4 of the UF8s is the maximum scale, with the inclusion of one UF1 and one UC1. So that is as big as it can get.
Right.
It should be noted, however, that more often than not, the USB cable loses some of its voltage when you daisy chain this. So when you get to that kind of scale, we will always recommend that you have some sort of a powered hub.
Yeah.
So that your distributed power is even from unit to unit. It's just a little bit more reliable.
Sure.
When you work that way. It doesn't change how it works. And if you're in a pinch and you're on a laptop, and typically I find that I can run this rig with one UC1 on one port cable. Yeah, port, jump from one to the other to the other.
Yeah.
So it works fine like that. But once you start to get into 2 UF8s or 3 UF8s or 4 UF8s, then it's definitely a good idea to have a hub.
Sure.
Yeah. And that brings us to, the 360 software isn't necessarily just about the controllers. It also encompasses our IOs, and we have 2 different IOs that play host inside 360, and that's the SSL 12 and the SSL 18. So both of these, the SSL 12 and the 18, actually have mixing capabilities inside them. So if we go over to it's always fun when you're doing it this way. There we go.
Yeah.
And you select over at the right-hand side over here, you'll see that the
there it is,
SSL 12 is pulled up. Okay. When you select that interface, what you're looking at right now are the features of the SSL 12. So it represents it as a mixing console. So you have your inputs. These are your 4 line mic inputs that are available here. You also have 2 headphone auxes, so the access to the 2 headphones is represented as 2 aux ends, just the same way that you would do that on an SSL console. You raise the gain, and that will send that input pre-DAW to the headphones.
Right.
Now, can you do this post-DAW? Yes, because when you scroll over, you can see the available outputs, playback channels.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So these are the playback channels coming from Pro Tools. So here's where you can do your post-DAW monitoring. And this is where it's very handy because, like we were talking about on a real console, one of the nice things about being able to do overdubs on a console is that you don't have to worry about latency of your digital workstation. You can monitor direct from the channel or from the playback of the DAW, and you can essentially do the exact same thing here. And this is also can be set up as a preset. So typically in most of these workstations at home, people are going to have certain scenarios that they deal with. Like today, I'm going to be recording 2 vocals with my bass guitarist and my vocalist, or another guitar, let's say. So they could configure these channels for various different uses and open up the profiles from up there. Mm-hmm. And those profiles allow me to just quickly repatch the purpose of the console. So it's like a reset of the mixing console, like you would if it's a digitally controlled analog console. You're doing that here. And this is all done easily this way because on board here there's actually a mix engine. So it's doing that work exclusively inside the interface itself. The SSL 18 expands that. It gives you more channels, more I/O, but in general, as a principle, it's exactly the same concept.
Right.
Like for example, we've got an ADAT connection on here. So in the particular case with this one, it allows me to host a third party or something like an Alpha 8 like here. This is an extended converter. It's got 8 ins, 8 outs, it's got ADAT ports on it. So I can do ADAT out of here, feed it into here, and then be able to apply those input channels as extra channels into this interface, turning it into a 12-channel I/O instead of a analog I/O, I should say, instead of a 4-channel analog I/O.
Right.
That way. Yeah, and there's a number of other interesting features, like, for example, if you go over to this this wheel over here, the little, there you go. These, for example, headphone A and headphone B, you notice it says standard on them. So this is essentially was working with a gain adjustment for most headphones, 80% of the headphones. However, there are high sensitivity headphones, or headphones that require better sensitivity. So if you have something that is low impedance and needs more signal to drive it, you can adjust that right there.
Right.
So it allows you to apply pretty much any headphone situation that you might run into. It's usually a pet peeve for a lot of people with interfaces that don't really drive high quality headphones very well. They pump it up really loud, but they still don't get enough gain. This is how you get around that problem, is you just adjust the amplifier. Now, why is that possible? Well, it's possible because it's actually the same amplifier as the main outputs.
Yeah.
Okay? The only difference here is we've actually assigned it for the purpose of a headphone. Now, can we reassign it as a line output? And the answer is yes. You can just change the amplifier so that it's a balanced line output.
Or unbalanced.
Or, well, the unbalanced part goes into another little trick. And the unbalanced part actually allows you to do a left and right. Split the two, and giving you, so you got 1, 2, 3, 4 on the back, and you got 5, 6, and 7, and 8.
Wow.
So in a pinch, if you need 8 channels of I/O, you can squeeze it out of this.
Right.
And mainly because it's a clever use of the typical technology that you would find on an interface, but we're just being more creative with it, and we're applying it so that it serves multiple purposes. So those headphone jacks, no, not just headphone jacks, they can be line level outputs, either in balanced mode or in unbalanced, doubling their channel count. And then, of course, you've got things like mono compensation. So there are different responses that you might be trying to match to a digital workstation. So if you're doing panning left and right and you're monitoring in the interface and it doesn't quite match, this is where you're able to make sure, you try to match that settings. And one of the really, really amazing things about the fact that this is a $500 interface is we can actually run this at plus 24 dB. And this is only usually restricted to very expensive converters.
Right.
So we can run this at plus 18, plus 20, and plus 24. So if you are in a situation where you require a reference plus 24 dB, especially, for example, if you're driving an analog console, you might need that, just to push enough gain into the analog console, then you can actually set that up easily right from there. And of course, you've got built-in metering on this, very high resolution meters, and they're quite large, as a matter of fact. They extend to pretty much the length, half the length of the display. So you got really nice meters on here, and you can set up either like a 3-second hold or permanent hold or no hold at all. So those are your metering selections. And of course, you can also clock it externally. So you have internal clocking available, but once you select the optical port,
Right.
By the way, you can set the optical port to be SPDIF or ADAT. And once that happens, then this becomes the master clock of this device.
Right.
So this becomes the master clock of the whole unit, or whatever else you happen to be plugging in through the optical port. So and what's also really cool is that these buttons are programmable. So sometimes what I do is instead of setting them up as a cut button like you do on an SSL console, I would set this up as a 360 button. So if I want to see the 360 interface of this, I can reprogram those buttons so that I see this interface when I press this button.
Right.
The same way I would if I selected 360 on this. I would see this interface.
Right.
Or if I press 360 on that, the interface immediately flies to what I want to look at. And of course, you know, you turn it back off.
How do you reprogram that?
Well, you go over to, let's open that up again.
And
Go
then
back
go
to
back to
the SSL 12 and go into the parameters. Is it there? Hang on a second. No, it's not. I think it's in. Let's see. Loop back. Sorry, hang on. Let's enable talkback. I know. See, this is where. Oh yeah, here we go. User. See where it says user right there?
Yeah.
And the cut button. If you select, if you right click on that.
No. No. Or is it under?
Sorry, I'm trying to remember now.
Yeah, it's all good.
Try the S button. Well, that's the solo. Select that one more time. That
Was
button
it
right
under
there.
settings here, maybe? No.
Try that.
Let's see. Oh, that was the same settings.
No, that's the same menu. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Usually, I think I got to it by right clicking, but go over to.
Or would it be no controls?
No, that's the I/O mode.
Okay.
Well,
we can
I mean,
cover that in the next video.
I'm sorry about that. I'm having a brain fart
It's
right
all
now, and I
good.
can't remember how to do it.
Maybe is it under? If I right click here, no, same thing.
Yeah. Goodness. Okay. I'll probably remember it
Yeah.
later. But that's it gives you various options for what you want that button
Where
to
you can
do.
assign it to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can assign it to multiple options. Otherwise, it functions like a normal monitoring system, and that's something else that's nice about all of the SSL.
Sure.
Is that you have this big blue knob, which does go to 11. Haha. And you got a cut and a alt output. So the alt output allows you to assign 3 and 4 to be alternative speakers outputs rather than just regular line level outputs. So by hitting alt, you're able to flip between speaker set A, speaker set B. And yes, you can actually gain match them from the mixer here. Like we did we've talked about gain matching on speakers on the console. You do that from the mixer over here, so make sure the gain is equal. And of course, never, miss a talkback.
Yeah.
So you got a talkback microphone built right on here and a talkback button that you select, and that will go to the headphone system when you select that. And that would be headphone A and headphone B. Yeah. So it takes care of the typical day-to-day workflow things that would try the souls of most people, and those are some of the things. Would be one of them is like being able to communicate with your artists if they happen to be isolated, for example.
Sure.
Yeah, so that is the total case of the SSL 360, and like I mentioned, it's designed as a way to repurpose your existing workflow and just make it simpler and easier for somebody to work on a day-to-day level.
And the devices that are capable of SSL 360 are all of the control surfaces, so the UF8, UC1, and UF1.
Yeah.
And then the
12,
SSL 12 and the 18.
18. Yeah. They all have the that capability.
Yeah. and then everything would show up here. And if there's any like firmware updates, it'll
Yeah.
show all the devices.
It immediately says to you, say, hey, your SSL 12, like this morning.
Yeah.
When we plug the 12 in, it says, oh, your firmware needs to update. You hit the button, and it just automatically does the update and reboots the whole thing. And it'll automatically show you all your SSL 360 hosts that are here.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got 4 of these, it will show up four wide, 4 individual ones. And up here is where you're able then to design which layer
Right.
is assigned to which digital workstation. If you click on that, you'll see that we've really worked pretty hard to try to make sure every major digital workstation manufacturers here, and maybe some not so major ones are in here as well, but they're all here.
Mm-hmm.
And what this essentially does is it just remaps the general control features that exist already in the host for that protocol, whether that is MCU or Huey. Most of those digital workstations, by the way, are all MCU. The only holdout really is Pro Tools. Pro Tools works on the Huey protocol. But the combination of what we do with 360 and the Huey protocol opens the doors to so many different things. So even though Huey is limited by definition, the 360 part kind of picks up and fills in all the holes and all the gaps. So it becomes equal in functionality to, let's say, Logic or Cubase or PreSonus Studio One. They all become pretty much the same thing, with some variations in how they work, of course, because they all have little changes. But you can, for example, let's say have like Live working with Pro Tools, and it's just a matter of pressing layer 1 to Pro Tools, layer
Right.
2 to Live, and back and forth, and there's no reset necessary.
Right.
It just gives you the interface in real time. And then you can decide which is the transport master,
Right.
and that would apply to this transport and this transport. And then we get into the weeds.
Ooh, sure.
Because that's where you get into things like the mix interface. So if you go over to the UF8, for example, let's select the UF8. Now, you'll see now there is a menu for each layer. So it's showing detail now of what each layer can do. So this is now showing you these soft key parameters.
Okay.
So these are the things that we've already pre-programmed, which are kind of typical, but they're not the rule of thumb. And here's where people get very, very creative. We've seen people do like macros, where one button function actually creates a track, calls the track guitar, and enables it.
Right.
Now, how is that has been done is by selecting that button there, and you either type in an existing DAW command or a keyboard macro. And what a macro is essentially a number of characters in a specific order, and those characters make up a specific function. Now, digital workstations like Logic and PreSonus Studio One and Cubase, Steinberg Cubase, they make a science out of being able to design any ASCII character combination to make it do anything you want. So what we see here is with a lot of the user groups is they will publish their macros. And those macros get into some incredible functionality. Like I've seen one, for example, on Cubase where they put the left and right locator, select all the tracks, and hit render. So the guy wants to render and make stems, offline stems of all of his tracks. It's just a single button on his UF8 that accomplished that entire function. So how creative you are is based on how knowledgeable you are
Right.
with your host digital workstation. And it's just a matter of then deciding, you know what, I do this twister thing that I have to do constantly inside one of my software. What if I just assign that to a button? How many seconds does that save me? and do that for multiple things. And what you begin to realize is your workflow dramatically improves on your favorite digital workstation just by applying some of these smart macros. And again, like I said earlier, those macros are user definable. This is where you get, like we said, you get into particularly into the weeds here, because
Right.
what you're taking is what we've built and you're applying your own aesthetics onto that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see. I want to try setting up a macro. So like just to do like a new track in Pro Tools and then down arrow, that's going to make it stereo. Let's do another one that's mono, and then another one that's a aux fader in stereo. That should do it, I think.
I think that should do it. Yeah.
Okay.
Some I'm not sure
Let's try it.
what the Mac. Yeah. Let's see
Okay,
what
so
happens.
let's see what happens.
Okay. So that's key number 1.
So if I hit 1, and then let me close this window. Let's see if it worked. If I do that, did it do it?
Okay. That's the actual. That's the group of commands. The actual buttons are here.
Okay, so where do I? So how do I?
So which button did you put it on?
1.
Number 1.
Yeah.
On. Can you go back to that really quick, just
Yeah.
to make sure?
360.
Okay. So you put it on key number 1.
Wait, let's see. Is that even right?
Yeah.
Did it
You
do
were
it?
on layer 1, key 1.
But it just went to pan actually, so it didn't save all that. Unless, is that where I put it?
Do it again.
Let's do it again. Keyboard macro. So if I do Command Shift it down
Okay.
and let's
And
do
close.
that. And then enter
Right.
and close. So that
Okay.
should do it.
And
Do I have to
before.
save it?
Yeah. Let's make sure we save it correctly first. So hit save as.
Okay, save as
Okay. Give it a name. Whatever that is.
test. Okay,
Okay.
cool.
So it looks like it's good now.
Okay, cool.
So let's go back
So
to.
now, should it hit 1 and it should do it, right?
It should do it. Yes. No. Okay. These are the
Oh,
menus. So now you did that on layer 1. This button here. Right? Oh, okay. Actually, no. We're in plugin mode. That's why it wasn't working.
there we go.
So now select that. And that.
And then 1 or no? Didn't do it. Let's see. Go back to 360. Make sure I did this right.
Yeah. Sometimes it's
Yeah, it could
it's
be a problem
figuring
with
out
my.
the key tags, the key
Right.
strokes themselves, because what you did was you held that button down.
Oh, so
So it might be because you held the button down. It actually
because
it
I was trying to
created
do this.
right.
That.
And what it could be right.
Yeah.
See what that's just done.
Yeah.
It's done all those commands.
Yeah.
You might want to hold the button down, press that, and then
Right.
release that button and do those other keystrokes.
Yeah.
After that.
Yeah. No need to get into the weeds right now, though.
Yeah. But you see, this is what happens. So it
Yeah.
added
Oh,
shift
'cause
plus
and
command
I can add
plus cursor.
and I can add milliseconds delay
Yeah.
to let the computer catch up.
Right.
So it's not just
Yeah.
like one shot of a bunch of keys.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they may not work.
Yeah,
The computer
exactly.
may look at that and say, I
It's
don't
just
understand
like
what you're doing.
you just slammed the whole keyboard with your entire
Right.
palm.
Exactly. Yeah. But it takes a little trial and error, and
Yeah.
knowing how your host wants to see things
Right.
is also a little bit of trial and error as well. But once you get into the rudiments of this, it just becomes building and building and
Right.
trying new ideas and trying new concepts.
No, that's super useful.
Yeah. And of course, this isn't nothing new. You have other host key controllers that do very, very similar things. But what's cool about this is that we're integrating what normally would have to be a key editor, a controller with separate buttons just for that purpose, is now also integrated into this controller. So you can really push the envelope with them
Sure.
if you want.
Cool.
Yeah, and that's just a quick example of what you can do with this. I don't know if there's any questions out there. Maybe we could.
So again, it's 4 UF8s, 1 UF1, and 1 UC1,
Yeah.
and that's the max.
That's
scalability.
not including controllers.
Converters, yeah,
Converters,
yeah.
excuse me. Yeah.
But that is plenty, considering that you can bank and nudge and do all that. That should be plenty. I don't know anyone that has a desk big enough to fit that.
Yeah, I mean, most people. There's some really great manufacturers who make these wooden
Like wraparound.
wraparounds. Yeah, and they put the 3 controllers into that, and it looks like a beautiful workstation.
Yeah.
So that's very typical these days, and it makes it real indicative of what you're expecting on a mixing console.
Totally.
Yeah. And it looks really nice.
Yeah.
When you go to the user groups, you see all these wonderful examples of that.
Very cool.
I don't know if we have access to questions here.
Yeah,
should
I don't
we?
know. Let me see. I could check. I haven't been checking. I don't know if.
The wrapper.
Do you guys have any questions? Yeah.
For the VST wrapper, is it only VST or is it AU also?
No, it works with VST3.
Just VST.
One of the reasons why it's only VST3 is VST actually has a lot more hooks into this type of integration. It's quite advanced in that way. And most manufacturers make AU VST and audio units anyway. So you're hard pressed to not find a VST version of a plugin. Yeah, so it's a pretty safe bet. All of your plugins that you probably own already are VST3. But it's also nice to be able to use VST inside Pro Tools, which originally wasn't meant to be the case.
Yeah, it doesn't look like anyone has any questions right now.
Okay.
But yeah, thank you for covering, from front to back, all of the control surface capabilities. And yeah, I mean, I can see how it would really speed up your workflow, and talking about how it kind of converts the way you use your energy versus using a keyboard and mouse, and you can really focus on mixing instead of visually using your energy.
I can't explain it to someone
Yeah.
what the difference is until they experience it.
Sure.
But it does rewire your brain a different way, and the only way to experience that is to actually do it.
Totally.
And it really makes a difference. And I personally believe that your interface has an awful lot to do with what you do produce.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be debated for years and years and years, but your interface does change how your brain works.
Totally.
And, so that's the whole idea of this, is to kind of go back to what we know works.
Cool.
And I will say one other thing. When you look at every digital workstation, the one thing that always stares you in the face is a 2-dimensional version of a console.
Right.
So obviously there is something powerful here. In 3-dimension, however, it's far more powerful.
Yeah, when you can actually touch it.
Exactly.
And also be able to move more than one fader at a time and create a mix.
Yeah, because of these things,
Yeah.
phalanges. It's nice to be able to use them all.
Cool.
Yeah.
You automate too, probably, right?
Oh
Yeah, all of the controls are touch sensitive. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the case of Pro Tools, your parameters for automation is right there on the very corner.
So you have it here on the UF8. You've got all your read, write, latch, touch functions. They're also here. How do you? Is there like a select to get?
Yeah,
into
that's what
these?
this is.
Oh,
that
that's
this
the
button's
shift.
there. It
Yeah.
shifts and
And then you have it.
You select the parameters from
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Perfect.
And this also can be used as a zoom in, zoom out if you select the middle button.
Right.
So you can do vertical zoom or horizontal zoom on your display from that. And this also works in that same way. If you're in the Pro Tools layer, it functions as a interface zoom in, zoom out.
And then can you flip between your mix window and edit window on the control surface?
Yeah, it's just right over here. So you select that,
Oh, there. Yeah.
like that, just like that.
And
And then
there
there
you
you
go. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't have the selection in the middle, then it becomes
Cursor.
a cursor control, or a region control, if you will.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Cool.
yeah. I mean, it's not going to cover all the bases as far as controlling around here, but you can get to most of the things that you need there. Like
Yeah.
your mixer, your plug-in assignments are all selected from here. You select, okay, I want that channel. I want to see plug-in number 1 or plug-in number 2. And you can see it. It's opening it up right there,
Right.
just like that.
Yeah. Cool.
And when you do that over there, the SSL 360 will automatically throw those parameters up on here and on here.
Cool.
So you don't have to go hunting.
Well, thank you again. I'm going to check the chat one more time to see if anyone has any last minute questions before we finish. But it looks like there's no questions right now. Yeah, we're good. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you guys for joining us in person.
Yeah. Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next time.
All right. Take care.
Okay. I'll do this. We're good? Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't remember to check your VST plugin folder.
You know, I
Totally
just set up this
missed
computer.
that one.
And it was like, I got this computer, downloaded the 360, and then I
totally missed that one. It's like,
installed
oh,
Pro
damn
Tools.
it, I didn't do that.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, if anyone wants to sit down at the controllers and play around. Yeah.